tutorial to help show you what we're using for our simulated documentation program. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, Fusion is the website right here. FusionWebClinic.com is how you're going to access this documentation program. When you go to log in, it's important here to recognize that there's user login and there's EDU user login. We're using this as educational purposes, so we need to make sure we click on this bottom login. If you don't, you're not going to be able to find your account. I've already gone ahead and entered you into the system, and you should have gotten an email that would prompt you to access Fusion. If for some reason you didn't get this, just feel free to email me and I can shoot the link to you. So once we click on EDU user login, this is the page that's going to come up. So again, if you need to reach me, here's my email, caitlin.kelly@maine.edu. This our @maine.edu is our login for everybody. So your first name and @maine.edu. You're going to be prompted to change your password to whatever you'd like. Again, I think it's easier to bookmark this page so you can come back to the documentation program whenever you need be, but however it works for you. So once we go ahead and log in, this is kind of what the general navigation site looks like. So your schedule is going to be totally empty to start, but what you're going to need to do is create a patient. That'll be your first assignment on Fusion. There's a couple ways to do this. The easiest way, I think, is if we go up here to the search bar. Right next to it, it's a small button with a little person and the plus sign, add patient. We're going to go ahead and click on that. So the professors are going to give you these cases, they're going to give you the patient's name, all their information. What's really important is once you get that patient's name, even if they have a last name, so we're going to go ahead and make this, I'm going to use, so the patient's name is Sean. Even if the professors gave you a last name, you're going to want to go ahead and use your own last name. That way, you're making sure you're accessing the correct patient, because all of the students in our program have access to all of the other patients, and everyone's going to have a patient named Sean if the professors assign him to you. So the only way for you to distinguish that you're working on the right client is to use your own last name. Again, super important. If you want to even better the odds that you're not working on someone else's patient, I sometimes give them my own middle name as well, just to make sure. So Sean, Patricia, Kelly. The OT program is always going to stay the same, and that's all you have to do to create a patient. So once you save that patient, it's going to prompt you to this screen right here. The most important thing on this page, under age group, I'm going to pretend right now that Sean Kelly is actually an adult, but Fusion has automatically put him under pediatrics. If we go ahead and click on this, we can change that information. The problem with it automatically putting a patient in pediatrics is when you go to document, a lot of times certain information isn't going to come up because they think you're peds, so different assessments or standardized tests aren't going to show up. If you experience this, make sure you click on the patient on the schedule and it'll bring you back to this page, and you can go ahead and at any point you can change the patient's age group. So again, email me if you're finding that certain things aren't showing up. Okay, so once you've created that patient, we still need to create an appointment for the patient so we can document. So right down here on the left-hand side, we got appointments, and we're going to want to go ahead and click that button. And we need to click the appointments. There's no appointments here to display. Now we are prompted to enter a time and date. I like to schedule the first time I saw the patient on the day the assignment was given or sometime around there, because it will help me locate the patient later on if for some reason I'm having trouble pulling them up. It happens just like any computer system. So let's just go ahead and say that February 4th, I'm going to put in the time, 4 p.m. Again, these small details don't really matter. They're more for you. However, it helps you remember when you put the patient in the system. Duration, again, the professors aren't going to pay or get on you for minute details like this especially in the beginning. But if you're doing a documentation and you're doing a quick SOAP note, maybe it's because you only saw the client for 30 minutes rather than like an eval where you might have seen them for an hour and a half. I'm never going to repeat it as a series because I'm not continually seeing these clients. The next biggest thing I would say that's important on this add appointment is this first tab up here. Like I was just saying down below, if we're talking about what duration we might have seen the client, well, right now we have them scheduled that this is just a normal visit. Sometimes you're going to be asked to do an entire eval on a patient. If you're doing that, you're going to want to change this appointment type to initial evaluation because this is important when you go to document on the patient. The computer is going to automatically pull up the appointment under a certain documentation depending on what you put in as the type of appointment. So since I want to show you how to do a SOAP note right now, I'm going to say that this is just a normal visit. And the patient is already in there as Sean. Therapist is me, so we're all set, so I can go ahead and save this appointment. I'm going to X out of this screen and this one as well. And now we see that we need to go to February 4th because that's the day I made it. So right up here we can use these arrows to go to February 4th. 4 o'clock. All right, so here we are. We can see that we've made the patient. We've put them on our calendar. The next step, before we can document, you have to roll over the patient's name. And down here where there's these 4 little buttons, we need to make sure that we click on Mark as checked in. Once we hit that, you're going to see this green check mark. That's going to allow you to actually document for the patient. Until you mark them as checked in, it's pretty much like saying the client hasn't showed up yet. So until you can document, until you click this button, you can't document. So make sure if you're having trouble right off the bat, make sure you've gone ahead and done that. Once they're all checked in, now we can go up to the documentation tab right next to the schedule. And we are looking to do a SOAP note. So if we click on the documentations, we're here. And we go to this left-hand column, we're looking to do a daily SOAP note. So I'm going to go ahead and click on daily notes. And I'm going to scroll, your most recent client is going to be down at the bottom. So I'm going to scroll all the way down. And here is Sean, 2/4, 4 p.m., not started. So I'm going to go ahead and click on him. And now I have the template for a daily note. So similar to how you've been doing your documentation in a Microsoft Word document, we have the subjective, we have the S, the O, objective, the A for assessment, and the P for plan. So in the subjective, you can type your usual, something the client said, and the O, anything you saw during the activity. This one you can get kind of detailed. You can go ahead and type in therapeutic activities you did. Like we could talk about, maybe we did some wheelchair transfers or stand to pivot transfers, bed to chair transfers. Maybe we worked on some kind of like a therapeutic activity in general, or maybe you did some kind of modalities with them, therapy. Either way, you don't have to get as detailed in this, and maybe you can't find the activity that you're even looking for. If you can't find exactly what you're looking for, there's this general section down here, goals and notes. Feel free to just write out whatever you want, especially in the beginning. The professors will recommend, when in doubt, write it out. You can go down here, write out whatever you need if you couldn't find exactly what you wanted in the program. That's part of this, the goal of using Fusion is to get used to different documentation programs and figuring out how best to present your information, especially if the program isn't laid out exactly as you might have wanted it to be. Not every program is perfectly laid out for occupational therapy, and it's our job as a professional to figure out the best way to organize and present our information. So once you've figured out how you want to present your objective information, again, you can scroll down or use this sidebar to get to the assessment section. You can write all that out. Plan a treatment, just this box down here again. Take-home activities, you won't always be doing that, but it's just additional information you could include if you wanted to. Charges, a lot of times you won't start talking about these yet, but CPT codes are the way that we are going to let insurance company know how what we were doing so they can reimburse us. Um, a lot of times I'll type into Google certain billing codes that I want to find in relation to OT, just to kind of practice um, using this section of the documentation, because it is something we'll use eventually. Again, the professors have a lot of great resources on CPT codes, and they're actually constantly changing. So, it's not a bad thing to start practicing. Contributors, we almost never use this section, but it is a way that this documentation program is designed that we could send over our notes to other professionals dealing with this patient, which is kind of great. I do recommend down here there's a preview button. And this is a nice idea to kind of get an idea of what exactly your note looks like. So again, I didn't write anything right now, but if I click on this, it's kind of a nice way to go through spelling errors, or if you've left out sections or included new sections and you want to see how the layout is actually going to print or be viewed by the professors. That's a really good button to click. So preview is your friend. Once you are done, you could sign that note, or you could just save the daily note. The difference is signing it is going to move it to a different category. If we save the daily note, then you're still going to find it in this in progress section. If you sign it, it's going to be in this completed section. Not a big deal. Even if you sign it, you can still go back and revise the document, and that will just move it back to the in progress section. So either way. That is your basic navigation for Fusion. Again, once you get into initial evals and progress notes, reassessments, when you get to the scheduling, the biggest thing is, again, changing that visit so the documentation comes up in the appropriate column. But most of this stuff can be revised, so I think the easiest thing to do with Fusion is just to really play around with it, constantly preview how your documentation is looking, and a lot of times the further you get into it, you're going to find sections where you're like, oh, I think that actually would have been better presented this way, but that's the whole learning curve of this program. So try and be patient with it, and if you need any help, you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer even the most minute question you might have. So again, my email is caitlin.kelly@maine.edu, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any problems, okay? All right, good luck, guys.